Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will complete our chapter Britain Rules India, the chapter 1 of the History and Culture of Pakistan by Ismat Riaz. This is your book, Ismat Riaz, Understanding History. Along this book you can also take help from the History and Culture of Pakistan by Nigel Kelly. By the end of today's lesson, the students will be able to recall the previous lesson, analyze colonial system of governance in British India, evaluate the British education system, debate on the relations between British and Indians after the War of Independence 1857. The British rule in India can be divided into two phases. The company rule from 1600 till the year 1858, and then the crown rule from 1858 till 1947. It means that the first phase starts from when the British entered into the subcontinent in 1600 as traders in the form of the East India Company. The trade proved to be very profitable, as we have discussed earlier. They kept on increasing their control over the subcontinent. They kept on exploiting the Indians and grabbing their lands by using different laws. And finally, they fought the war of 1857, known as the War of Independence, by the Indians, and Indians mutiny by the British. The second phase starts from 1858, when the rule came into the hands of the British, when they fully established themselves as the new rulers of the subcontinent. So from here actually starts the British administration over the subcontinent. The year 1858 itself was a year of great event in that the administration of the government of India passed into the hands of the British government from the East India Company. Now India came under the direct rule of British. So after becoming the rulers, the British brought about certain changes. Definitely they wanted to rule the subcontinent, keeping in view their own priorities. So let's start with the administration under the British. After 1858, India was divided into 11 provinces which were directly under the British rule. This was a part of British divide and rule policy actually. Then the British followed the administration of the Mughals with centralization at the core and a responsible provincial government. The whole structure was ably managed by civil service officers selected through civil service examination institutes in 1853. The army was separate and had its own recruitment policies. The most notable thing here is that economically India came to be tied more securely to British industrial needs and markets, because at that time India was behind while the British were going through industrial revolution. So they needed the raw materials which they were getting from India. So that is why India was a golden sparrow for them. They needed raw material which they were getting from India. So next comes the British private sector invested in public works. Previously, indigo, opium, salt and cotton had been the main exports from India, but now tea, coffee and jute were added. It means they expanded their trade. By 1885, 250,000 acres were planted with coffee in South India. So like I told you that they kept their own priorities, their own benefits in their mind and made their policies according to that. The education system under the British rule. By 1835, the pace of change in India was quickened. There were quick changes. Under the Governor General, decisions were taken which were to alter the course of educating the Indians. Thomas Bebington Macaulay had joined the Governor General's Council in 1835 as the first law minister. His famous Minute on Education put to rest the controversy whether Oriental education in Sanskrit and Persian should be given government support or the promotion of Western learning through the medium of English language. Let's have a look at the basis, the reason behind educating the Indians. Uh, let's have a look at Lord Mochly's Minute on Education. Our aim is to form a class of persons Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. So, keeping in view this aim of them, they introduced our educational policies. Lord Mochly's Minute on Education. Earlier I told you that Mochly's intention was to form a class of persons who may be interpreters between them and the millions they govern. It means they should work as bridge between the British and the Indians. The missionaries had also identified the teaching of the English language and a Western curriculum as essential to their promotion of Christianity, which was one of their main agendas. They wanted to spread and promote Christianity. Once the Indians were steeped into the realms of Western thought and science, Mochly's objects could be achieved. The funds allocated for education by the British government would then be spent on imparting Western learning in the English language to young Indians. So they wanted to get the support of the young Indians. They wanted to train them according to their own policies. Government maintained schools and missionary grants in aid schools followed a similar curriculum with the exception of Bible teaching. The pathshalas of the Hindus and the madrasas of the Muslims came to be neglected. It became far more practical and necessary to gain Western education in English to get jobs in British administration. Wood's Dispatch on Education 1854. Sir Charles Wood's Dispatch of 1854 led to the establishment of a Department of Public Instruction under which degree awarding universities were set up on the pattern of London universities. Later on, other universities were set up on the same lines. The Kolkata University Commission was set up under the Sadler Commission in 1919. One of its recommendations was that medium of instruction up to high school level should be in the vernacular or the local languages and in English at college and university level. Now let's have a look at what were the results of the education policy of the British. So Lord Mochly's Minute on Education for India left long-lasting effects on the Indian subcontinent. The emphasis on Lord Mochly's reforms took away funding from the pathshalas and madrasas of the Indians. When British left India, literacy was reduced to just 10% in areas making up Pakistan and 30% in India. So this was the long-lasting effect of the educational policies introduced by and implemented by British. Communications and economic policy. So the British brought reforms in each and every field, like communication and economy also. Modernization plan for India was carried on even more diligently after the Crown took over in 1858. In order to reduce the army, the lines of communication across India had to be clear. So they made the railways. Telegraph lines were laid. Railway tracks grew to 5,000 miles and to 25,000 miles by the end of the 19th century. They needed the railways actually in order to transfer the raw materials, the resources from India to the subcontinent. All the raw materials, locomotives, railroad equipment and cars were directly imported from Britain. Agricultural production was boosted. There was a marked change in lifestyles of the rulers and the ruled. Let's have a look at the relation between British and Indians after 1857. Actually, after 1857, the scenario was completely changed. Now, the British were the rulers and the Indians came under the British. Before 1857, like if we recall from 1600, so they came as traders. At that time, the Indians were the rulers. The Mughals were in power. But after 1857, the roles were completely changed. So definitely there has been change in the relation between British and Indians also. Despite the advances in the field of commerce, trade and education, relations after the War of 1857 between the Indians and the British remained one of the distress. They both distrust each other. British distrust the Indians and the Indian distrust the British. Before the war, English officers had adopted the ways of the Indians. Many of them married Indian wives and their children came to be called Anglo-Indians. So this was the scenario before the war of 1857 when they were not established as the rulers. But let's have a look what happened after the war. The British isolated themselves behind their exclusive Gymkhana clubs and civil lines residential areas with huge bungalows on spacious tree-lined roads. Families of civil and military officers were encouraged to come out and live in India. A whole structure of White Sahibs and Mem Sahibs was formed. So this was a big change for both the British and the Indians. But after some time, there has been change in the British policies. The War of Independence had made the British realize the mistake of not keeping themselves informed about Indian opinion on the reforms that they had brought in before 1857. So the British administration decided to include Indians on their council so that they could advise them. The notable thing here is just to advise them. It means that they don't want to involve the Indians in any decision making process. They just want to take their suggestion, their opinion, their advices. From 1861 onward, the British tried to include the princes and landed gentry in the administration of the country in an advisory role, like I told you earlier. The British members of the Viceroy's councils were each given a department to run. The Department of Foreign Affairs was directly handled by the Viceroy. So definitely the main powers were in the hands of the British. This is the detail of the Indian Council Act of 1861 where they included and involved the Indians. The Indian Council Act of 1861 was passed to include non-official of Indians descent on the Viceroy's Executive Council to be nominated by the Viceroy himself. The number could not be less than 6 and not more than 12. Indian participation was limited to taking into account their opinion on legislative matters. The Viceroy had the right to veto any law being passed by the legislative councils. This is the detail of the Indian Council Act of 1892. In 1892, nearly 31 years later, the British thought to involve more Indians on the Legislative Council of the Viceroy. The strength of the council was increased and 2/5 of its members could be non-official. The Indian members could question the government on financial policy but could not submit or propose any resolution. Under pressure from the Indian National Congress, the British Indian government agreed to hold elections in India. About the Indian National Congress, which was formed in 1885, we are going to study in the next chapters in detail. The act was criticized for giving hardly any concession to Indians in voicing their views in the administration. So like I told you earlier that they involved the Indians just to get to know about their opinions. They were not involved in any legislations. So today we have discussed the British administration, their educational policies, their economic policies, then the advances which were made in different fields, but again keeping in view their own priorities, they introduced all these changes. And then we have discussed that why they involved the Indians in the Viceroy's councils and what was the after effect and the impact of all these policies. This is your today's written task. Before explaining it to you, I tried my best to be concise, precise, compact and to the point in the explanation of all these content. because the purpose is just to introduce the main events to you, because you are going to study them in detail in your Cambridge 1 inshallah. So the purpose of all this effort is just to make you to get to know about the main facts and figures, and you don't feel overburdened, and you can easily learn them. And you can take the help from your both books, it's up to you. The very first question coming to the written task is describe how British administered their empire in India. You can take the help from Understanding History by Ismat Rayaz. Then question number 2 is what changes took place in the lifestyle of the British rulers before and after the War of Independence. It's a 4 marks question, and you have to give a comparison of both their lifestyles before the war and after the War of Independence. Explain the education policy of British in India as conceived by Lord Macaulay.